Okay, well, happy to be there. I'm really first honored to be here at the ETZ and at your VisCon. Um, my name is Alexis Roussel. I'm very quick, uh, very quick career is that I started working at the United Nations for 7 years on the topic of e-government. And then I moved to the private sector, going out of the United Nations, and started some politics. And I was working on the subject of technology and society and the connection between the two. So the main topic that interests me is how society is changed with technology, and how technology is changing governments. So I joined a political party which is called the Pirate Party, and I was for 2 years president of the Pirate Party, and it allowed me to build up my thinking and build up a whole program for how to make a human-centric digital society. Basically, that's what we are trying to do. And from this, it pushed me into my latest career, which is as an entrepreneur, where I started a Bitcoin company, buying and selling Bitcoin, because I think Bitcoin has some of is built on tools which are important for a digital society. And now I'm working for another company which is called NIM Technologies, which is creating a successor of Tor, which is a network, which is an anonymization network. So all this has sense, and it all come together with the work I do on the digital integrity that I'm going to present right now. And digital integrity of the human person is actually a proposal for a new fundamental right, and it's actually getting some traction. We've been working for sometimes now over 10 years on this, and now it's getting to it starts to get a little bit of traction, especially within Switzerland. So we'll go through why we went there, what is this right, and what are the consequences, how we implement it, and what I'm doing around this. So the first thing to show you a bit where I come from, the world I come from is the political world I come from has been really is actually expressed in this event that happened in 2013, where you have the Pirate Bay. The Pirate Bay is a file sharing website. And they had set up they were using BitTorrent, which is a peer-to-peer system to share a lot of things about our culture, movies, music. And during the tribunal, the judge was talking to Peter Sunder and the other person who were part of the team of Pirate Bay, and he was trying to connect with them, and he said, "Oh yeah, you were meeting also in real life, outside of the computers." And Peter Sunder naturally said, "No, we don't use the expression IRL in real life. We say AFK, away from keyboard, because we think the internet is for real." So there was a clear distinction between the judge, who was from the old generation, who thought that there was the real life and there was internet, and there was two things different. And then you had Peter Sunder, and for him, he was saying, no, we're not living in a different world. It's just the same thing. It's just an extension. It's just where we are. And this fight was about culture. It was about making a new form of culture. And so this event, and they got jailed. They got punished for copyright infringement. Was seen by a lot of people as an attack on internet culture. So on the other side, there's also a lot of when you hear a lot of talks from economists and major government currently and still today, you hear that this phrase, which is personal data is the new oil, and it's a kind of mantra which is being used to kind of try to explain what is happening, to explain why those big companies are making a lot of money with data. And also it tried to give them some kind of directions on how to build the industry. And so governments right now, which maybe don't know and don't understand still what is happening with technology and society, they try to build the current, or change the current society, or to change the current economy using these kind of mantras, and trying to to set the correct setup for companies to be able to harvest data, to be able to use it, and to take value out of it. So really, personal data is the new oil. Is something we can hear from ministers, from government, from big corporation, and until today, it was successful, but still, from the start, I felt that it was wrong. It felt that it was wrong, and it was wrong because personal data is not oil. It's kind of like I'm not oil was my first reaction. I myself am not oil, but at the same time, it showed that personal data is something very powerful, and basically, it's like in the wrong hands. So the whole concept of personal data is the new oil. Is wrong and is uncomfortable to hear. So when you're in this scenario where basically people are being put in prison because they're creating some new form of culture by sharing data, this is how we saw, and they think that this new world is the same as the old one. It's just an extension. So there's no separation. And then you have like the economy, the governments who are just like putting all the condition in place so that it can use this data, which is oil, and when you're kind of a bit conscious of what of your first of your privacy or other things about this data, this that suddenly goes away and is used by other, um, uh, you want to try to do something against that, and so the first thing you do is you try to resist. You try to resist by using open source software. You try to resist by using cryptography to hide your conversation. You're spending a lot of time moving to Linux because you don't want to use a closed source system like Microsoft or Apple. And actually, it's a huge effort. It's a huge effort to resist, and it actually punishes you much more than the rest, because then you're cut off from the rest of the people you like. Your family is on WhatsApp, so why are you not on WhatsApp? Um, so um, uh, so there's a huge cost of resisting, and at the same time, when you hear about the people who say in the governments right now, we're also in the modes where if you want to fight for your personal data and for your data protection, basically it's up to you to fight for it. It's up to you to fight for it and go for it. And I know some people who can do this. I know Max Schrems, for example, who spent 2 years trying to use all the laws he had at his disposal to actually have access to his Facebook data and to and actually not many people are capable of doing the job he did. So he had a lot of impact, but very few people are able to do so. So resisting is not enough, and there's not enough, and people don't have the tools right now to be able to go against um, situation where the data is being completely um, spoiled, yeah, used. So there is, since a long time, since very beginning that internet arrived, there is a search for a core digital human right, something that would just like encompass all our digital sphere, basically. and something that can be understood and enforced in every constitution and in every society. It's very hard to find something. Um, the, in Germany, there was this. There is a movement that said, "Oh yeah, um, uh, there's a digital self, an autonomy, digital self autonomy that has to be enforced." But it's not exactly this that I was looking for. So basically, we have several political movements that are rising in the 80s, which is the crypto anarchist, is one of the most important movements right now, which is really the one that has been um, putting all the rules of the society, the open source society that we know now, and it's centered about the humans. But um, they have been focusing on the tools, on building the right tools, building the peer-to-peer, building the cryptography that were able to build this new society. But they haven't really worked on the law side, because they were like more we were more like in terms of like trying to reject the old system, because the old system didn't want to adapt. So but there is still a search for this core digital human right. And um, and, and why I think it will happen is that we can compare this in history, and we already had a similar case actually, where technology shaped the law and shaped the rights of the society in a way which is very very hard, actually very strong, like we live today. And the printing press has been such an innovation. So the printing press, it was had a long impact until today. It has a soft impact because it had time to spread through the society. But what had happened is that it really pushed a new society where all the rules of the society could be written on paper. And that's changed a lot. That changed because all the intermediaries' role were changed. The role of the church was immediately criticized by the printing press. And a world with human rights rose from this innovation. It took several years, several centuries, and it took a few revolutions and a few wars to get there. But it did happen. And I think the internet as a whole, I mean, I put here internet as a word which is easy for us to understand, but the internet is actually an innovation, which is a new form of writing also, which will lead to a new society, which is a digital human society, or human digital society. And in this society, we have few paths we can take, but I believe that there is place for a human-centric digital society, where you have human rights which are adapted to it, which are also extended in the digital world. And so I'm in this perspective, which is a long-term perspective. There is a big difference between the printing press and the internet, is that the speed of adoption is today much stronger. We have several laws. There's an exponential adoption of the technology, and so the speed is also exponentially. So what happened in several centuries will happen only on the course of like maybe one or two generation of people. Um, so what was the most important of all rights that came out of this first revolution is the right of life. Basically, once you start to write all the rules, you have a system, which is a technological system that you can give to everyone, which with paper. Um, well, you are going to try to give the same rights to everyone, and in order to do so, the first of the rights that you want to give is the right to life. The right to life is the most important right. Without it, you cannot create other rights. Okay, and the society says, well, if you have the you have to be first inside the society, because if you don't have the right to life, that means that some people are inside the society and some people are outside of society. The problem is that if you're outside of the society, then the rules don't apply to you, and you have a problem. So usually a society who wants to have peace will try to get people inside and will create a right to life, because the society is made of people. So that's the first right, and the right of life appears. It's from a very long time. It's mostly comes from Christianity and Judaism. Um, it comes from you shall not kill. That's the core. Uh, One of the first appearances of it, and it was put in our constitutions, in our Declaration of Human Rights, and you will see that in almost all the all the constitutions of all the humanistic countries. Is it in the U.S. Or in the States? Is it in the European country? You will see that there is usually an article quite in the top of the constitution, especially for modern constitution, which is the right for life that is given to everyone. And the right of life has two, is usually combined with another number of rights to make it a bit more precise. And in Switzerland, for example, the Article 10 of the Constitution says, well, next to in the right of life, you have a right to physical integrity and you have a right to mental integrity. So these are two core rights that you have. Um, and you have a third one, which is the right for the freedom, the liberty of movement. You have the right to move around. And basically, those rights exist there to kind of protect your personhood. So that represents your whole person, and it has a reason. And it has a reason because it protects your autonomy. So today, and we saw this with the case of the Pirate Bay, uh, we can say that our life has been digitally extended, that our life, our social networks, our interactions with our friends and family, our businesses, the relationship with our government, everything, our shopping is existing also in the digital sphere. So if we don't have this digital element in our life, we are completely excluded of the life in society. So I argue that the right of life should also be digitally extended, should also apprehend the digital sphere, which right now we could think it does, but I argue it doesn't. So the idea is that next to the physical and mental integrity, we also have a digital integrity. So the human person basically is made out of three elements. It's made out of his body, his mind, but also his digital footprint, data, which is there, is also part of the human person. And what it allows to do, and that's the most important, is that the respect for a constitution, for a society to respect the life and the physical integrity and the mental integrity of the person is actually allowing this person to be free and autonomous, to take its own decisions. If you are always under threat, if when you go to vote you have someone beating you up, so not respecting your physical integrity, if you have a government which is creating propaganda and frightening you and threatening your mental integrity by putting subliminal messages, you will not vote in a free way. And the same thing we saw with Cambridge Analytica, that if we are meddling with your digital bubble, your informational bubble around you, uh, we can make you change the way you vote without you even noticing it. So the respecting of your integrity is something which is crucial for you as a human person to make the right choices in your own autonomy and with your freedom. And we need to guarantee this in the digital space. And it was not the case with Cambridge Analytica. So the consequences of this, the first consequences, which is very important, is that we finally have a kind of qualification of what personal data is. Personal data, we have the legal qualification right now, which is something which we identifies an individual. So, okay, uh, but there is a big difference in the world right now on how we consider those data. And in the US, or the old liberal world, it exists also in Europe, we will consider data as objects that can be bought and sold, and simply can be manipulated how much we want, and we can feed this back to the person, even harming the person. That's not a problem because it's something I have bought. In China, the approach will be more like that. Personal data is something which is a public good. It's owned by the society, and the government, the state, has responsibility of this, and can use it the way they want it for the greater happiness of the country. And this is why also most of the people, they think it's okay to have the surveillance state in China has how they have it, because they think, and the government also think, it's for the greater happiness of the whole country. Um, in Europe, there is now a trend which started in a declaration, um, which says that personal data are not object, it's not public good. These are constituting elements of the person. So these are part of your bodies. These are part of you. Exactly like a body part, exactly like your soul. It's something which is owned by you and cannot be sold. Um, it doesn't mean you cannot work for someone else. It doesn't mean you can. There are some cases where you might sell your hair, for example, but basically the fact that you are creating this, we are categorizing personal data as element of the person, mean that there are some rights which can never go away. There's some rights over personal data which are inalienable, and every infringement to this personal data, or any harm that is done, must be done in a way that it doesn't alter the autonomy and the freedom of the person. And that's not the case right now. Some consequences. So harvesting data, for example, just harvesting data by someone you don't know, a company, is something which is harming your digital integrity, unless you have informed and you have given consent in a very specific way. We're not in a parallel universe. So Angela Merkel is talking about Neuland. We are in an extended environment. The person didn't change, but the society is organized differently, and the digital part is there also. And yeah, it's just that there's this extension of the environment, of the life environment. It's not a separate place where laws don't apply. And no human has the possible. Oh yeah, and then the last consequence is something also very important, is that in reality, when we understand that personal data are elements of our body or ourselves, it becomes clear that you cannot ask someone to know exactly where its data are. And today, current data protection law assume, if you want to protect yourself, if you want to go and fight for your data, you have to know where those data are. And in reality, this is not possible. Your data are copied in many places, in government data storages, in third-party advertisement data storages, in your ISP, and in many places. And the quantity of data which is created is so big that in reality, no one has a good consideration of where the data is. So the uh, it is impossible to assume, and a law should not assume that you know where your data is so that you can protect yourself. So if we assume that we have a digital integrity, that this digital integrity should be respected in order for our autonomy to be capable of taking decision, that we are capable of taking decision, we don't need to know where our data is. Our data as part of our person are protected the same way as if we would know where they were. And this is important. It's the same thing as the comparison we can give is something like if a person is thank you for the time. That's the a comparison is that someone who's disabled, for example, maybe doesn't have a good understanding of his body, and maybe is ready to cut off his arm. It doesn't matter. He is still protected for his physical integrity, even though he doesn't understand the the where his body is starting or ending. One of the question I have is that, yeah, but there is already GDPR and digital integrity. You're adding this on top, and is it maybe incompatible? And say no, it's not incompatible, because when you have rights, when you have like huge big rights, you always have then a set of rules which implement protection mechanism for those rights, and the GDPR is a good rule for that, a good law for that. So the same way for your physical integrity, you have a criminal law, which if you go through criminal law, you can see all the the crimes that you can do against someone, against the bodily integrity of someone, and there's a manual for this on what not to do and what are the rules on how to respect someone. And this is the same. So the GDPR or the Swiss law on data protection are tools for protecting digital integrity, but they have not been, they were not written with this concept in mind. So they should adapt a little bit. And one place where they should adapt is for GDPR is Article 2. Article 2 is the material scope, which I call the security black hole. And the security black hole is basically to say that as long as a state is managing your data or using your data or even harming your data for a security reason, and very vaguely a security reason, then they can do whatever they want, and that is something that needs to be reduced. I'll just go. I only have 5 minutes, so I'll go a bit further. So basically, the right to digital integrity is really like the general justification for the right of data protection. It's not just the fight for privacy or some very specific thing. It's a very large right that will take all the digital rights under under its umbrella. So it's really an umbrella right. And and that the fact that we are putting these words and we're guaranteeing the respect of our digital integrity, this is what will allow us to enforce the right to our digital self-determination. And this is something which is already recognized by tribunals in Germany. It starts also in Switzerland to be recognized, but it's only in tribunals. There's no place where we can write it down, and there's no, so, but I think the right place to enforce the right to digital self-determination is actually to respect the digital integrity of the human person. So that's why I propose to write this. So where are we going to implement this? So there's two obvious implementation that we can have. One is in the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union, Article 3. Everyone has the right to respect for his or her physical and mental integrity. And also in the Swiss Constitution, every person has the right to personal liberty, and in particular to physical and mental integrity and to freedom of movement. So it's the most simple implementation is actually just to add the digital integrity in those lists, and then suddenly all the other laws have to at one point can be challenged or can be modified to respect also digital integrity. So it's a one very small change that can suddenly put all our rights into the digital era. And I think GDPR is a very complex document, 88 pages, very technical. People don't understand it. It's very hard for people to grasp what is happening. Data protection law in Switzerland is also quite more simple, but it's still also complicated. And I think here we have a very simple principle right, which is understandable by a lot of people, that my integrity should be respected also digitally, and this is linked to my autonomy. There's some work being done right now, and there's two which are pretty much advanced, and the third one in preparation. So in Valais, there's a new constitution work being done, and there is the Committee of the Fundamental Right, which has proposed this article in the new constitution. So it should be presented. It was delayed by COVID, but it should be presented this year, hopefully, or and maybe voted then next year. But basically, they want to have the right to digital integrity in the right of life, but they see it as a separate article. So you will have first the right for physical and mental integrity, and then secondly, right to digital integrity. In Geneva, the FDP just made an initiative right now, so they are collecting signatures for adding this in the Geneva Constitution, and there is some preparation work that is happening now in Neuchâtel. Yeah, and these are okay. So it's not something new, and I'll finish with this, because what is interesting is that the Swiss Socialist Party already since 2015 had included this in the Internet Position Paper, and I'm not sure if they are all aware of it, because it was interesting. They made this paper and they gave it to a lot of experts, and they got a lot of feedback. So the paper is actually pretty good, pretty interesting, and we were able to add this already since there. And there was a SWICO poll that was made during the last election. And it was interesting because we were able to add this question: do you support a right for digital integrity in the Constitution? And basically, the Greens were saying 95% yes, and the worst number was for SVP. 55% were agreeing that we should have digital right integrity in the Constitution. So obviously, the more young you are, the more it was okay. Yeah, and yeah, just here for more resources, you can go on this website, and I'm open for questions.